Well folks, we just literally got 2 more days to go until specifically not only does the Nintendo Switch 2 is releasing, but in addition to Mario Kart World as well. So yay! I'm so excited for these both! Anyway, enough about that. Greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Joy here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS. So last time, we somehow managed able to fully complete everything in terms of World 7 in Giddy Sky to, of course, obtain some more puzzle pieces in addition to music boxes, and in addition to that, unlocking even more mini-games for some levels, specifically level 9 for both Toad Jump, Toad Trot, and Toad Shot. So logically though, it's about the fact that we are fastly approaching towards into the final stretch in terms of collecting those collectibles basically. In addition to that, we also did manage able to unlock the final set of extra stages, all thanks to the forms of a rematch encounter with the forms of Giant Kamek. So, and overall, we actually did that boss battle no problem, especially considering for the fact that we did manage to beat him in the quickest way imaginable. So, yeah, you get the idea for that point. So yeah, today for this video is that we are about to be hitting back into the final world in the game again, except this time we are about to be collecting the last bunch of collectibles, and maybe potentially speaking of, we could also try to able to actually do a rematch encounter, not only for the likes of an Angry Hammer Bro, but in addition to Bowser twice. So that's technically that we're about to be encountering Bowser as in not only the 3rd time, but also the 4th time as well, respectively, with the forms of both forms, basically. So either way, now, as you probably already expect about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 3rd of June today, in some cases in 2025 today, and like I said earlier, is about the fact that we've only got about 2 more days to go, or technically, if you want to count hours, that means about the fact that we are just literally 48 hours left until specifically not only does the Nintendo Switch 2 is releasing, but in addition to Mario Kart World, as well as the forms of a bunch of accessories for the Nintendo Switch 2, ranging from the Pro Controller, in addition to the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, and in addition to the carrier case, and not only that though, some third-party supportive games as well, like, you know, Sonic X Shadow Generations Switch 2 version, in addition to the forms of Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, along with much more than ever will be, especially considering for the fact that despite, you know, the majority of the third-party supportive games is unfortunately locked out behind the stupid game key cards in terms of physical releases, although I did manage able to pick something up during the other day actually, now as of course the £15 Nintendo eShop card, just in case about the fact that we can able to try to get the, you know, DLC upgrades for Sonic X Shadow Generations Switch 2 version. So logically though, I cannot wait able to actually play the game for the 4th time, and it's actually getting very close towards that particular release. So anyway, and in addition to that though, is about the fact that speaking of the forms of the Nintendo Switch 2 actually, that I did manage able to find out there's actually quite a lot of games, well technically speaking of, what I did manage to find out, there are currently up to 8 games they do somehow manage able to support the game share system, and no matter what though, is about the fact that they can be subbed up as like some Switch 1 games, and some other times, one of those games in particular was, well actually kind of think about it, 3 of those games in particular are Switch 2 exclusive in terms of game share. So for instance though, we're about to able to actually getting ourselves into well, we'll talk more about that, assuming of course if we continue trying to able to actually be collecting some, you know, the last batch of collectibles, if you can tell. So, as a matter of fact though, is about the fact I'm pretty sure that we've only got about 3 more days to go until the Summer Game Fest is about to start. Now, for what I've noticed is about the fact that someone did actually say there could be a possibility we might able to actually see the next Resident Evil game is going to be on its way, presumably speaking, for the sake of the forms of the Summer Game Fest, which appears to be called none other than Resident Evil 9, which, no matter what though, we're not entirely sure if it's going to be real or not, but I'm sure enough though is about the fact that again, we'll let Maxi will mention more about it, if, of course, he decides to able to go back on playing through Paper Mario, so just to ensure for the fact that we can easily take care of the forms of those two games for now. Now, speaking of which though, is about the fact that I was originally did say about the fact that, well, I was expected to normally try to able to, like, for instance though, as you can tell, we somehow collected every single collectibles in this particular stage, by the way. Normally, I would have liked able to end the level off for this point, but luckily though, I can able to actually do the easiest trick by simply trying to able to select the exit stage on the pause menu. So thankfully, we don't have to necessarily try to worry about going for a long stretch of the level. And not to mention though is about the fact that luckily though, just like the actual toads themselves, obviously though your collectibles will be kept and saved. So logically speaking though, unlike defaults of how it does in, you know, Princess Peach Showtime, that you have to specifically try to complete the actual stage as normal in order to able to actually keep the actual collectibles. So, and at the same time though, trying to deal with the forms of some platforming segments every once in a while. So yeah, you can get the idea for this point. So anyway, and it's also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that I just found this to be kind of weird, about the fact that when it comes to Bowser's Villa track number 2, it's actually pretty limited, and the reason why I say it's pretty much limited is because that particular music alone is only being heard, like, let's just say, well, technically this is now the second time we're going to be hearing that music, but as soon as we get to the forms of the last bunch of extra stages though, that might actually technically be the second and the final time we're going to be able to actually hearing that particular Bowser's Villa 2 music. So, because most of the time though, when it comes to the majority of any other stages for that matter, I'll always have to be by the forms of Bowser's Villa 1, just to ensure for the fact that it just fits the tone in terms of the forms of Bowser's Castle vibes. So, I know for a fact it has been about a couple of hours since I actually have last played this game for sure. Now, let's get to the forms of the main elephant in the room in regards to the forms of this particular discussion, in terms of the forms of the last few parts, in terms of the forms of Super Princess Peach as a Let's Play itself. Normally about the fact that I was expecting to try to able to actually conclude this game up during at some point for the sake of the forms of sometime on Thursday or Friday even. But unfortunately though, for what I've managed able to do my test recording, unfortunately though, there's going to be one technical issue with it, and I'll discuss more about that during at some point and during the likes of in tomorrow's case, because as a matter of fact, like I said before, is about the fact that, fundamentally speaking though, is about the fact that both me and Lola Bunny were actually getting very close towards the end of girl-themed games. So as a result though, yeah, you can get the idea what I was expecting for this point. And also, I don't suppose if you noticed, but so far, in terms of the forms of Pony Card DS Let's Play, it's actually gone pretty smoothly, especially considering about how many of those views we've got. Well, to be more specifically, it's most likely because of the forms of the nostalgia factor, in terms of the forms of going back into the Mario Kart DS racetracks and stuff like that, just before you know, Mario Kart World is on its way. So straight to the point though is about the fact that, well, we were originally decided able to actually just try to consider something about the fact that we can able to try to tackle through CT, GP, kind of custom made mods for Mario Kart DS, but I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, is about the fact I don't think it's possible we can able to actually tackle for that particular playthrough, mainly because no matter what though, like I said before, we're getting very close to the actual release of the brand new installment of the Mario Kart installments. That's of course, you know, Mario Kart World. So, anyways though, and I suppose no matter what though, is about the fact that we might also hear more about the forms of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds as well eventually. I mean, for I've also did manage able to find out, despite it's not going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be fake or anything, but someone did somehow say about the fact that maybe there's a possibility about the fact that this particular strange crossover, not only for the sake of the forms of the SpongeBob SquarePants, but in addition to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is potentially going to be on its way onto Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and I'm like, I'm not entirely sure about that though, mainly because no matter what though, like I said before, it's just a rumor or a leak from now on. So generally speaking, we shall wait and see what happens in due time though, especially that, you know, we're getting very close to the beginning of the Summer Game events. Such as, for instance, though, like I said before, the Summer Game Fest is going to be up first, and in addition to the Xbox Games Showcase, and possibly potentially the Nintendo Direct, if that's going to be the case, much like the forms of how it does it in both 2023 and 2024 respectively, and that could be also applies with 2021 as well, despite the fact that in that year it's all digital only, due to the forms of still stuck in the forms of in a pandemic year. Well, technically for both 2020 and 2021, well, despite the fact it's been a very long time since we actually last mentioned something related to the forms of both 2020 and 2021 respectively, because obviously both of those years, well, usually relatively speaking though, that we have to stuck indoors all day, and in addition to that though, just try to stay safe, so you can get the idea for that point. So anyway, so kind of think about it though, this is going to be the final time we're going to be able to try to interact with the forms of not only the Slide Brilla, but in addition to Sub Brilla as well. So just to ensure for the fact that we don't have to necessarily try to do more of these specific obstacles for, you know, for long now, especially considering for the fact that after all, that we are basically nearly at the end in terms of collecting the final batch of those collectibles. So now, as far as I'm aware, though, is about the fact that whenever we get to the extra stages, though, oh boy, it might actually get a little bit challenging at this point, especially considering with all that particular obstacles you have to go through. In addition to that, though, is about the fact that there's going to be a lot of, like, well, we'll save more details, more about it, whenever we get into the forms of those extra stages at this point, so either way. So, for now on though, let's discuss upon something else, like for instance though, I also did manage to able to find out about the fact I'm pretty concerned that I found it very surprising about the fact that we've never actually got the overview trailer for Mario Kart World yet, although, mind you, that we've already know about the game ever since it not only for the likes of the actual Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Switch 2, but in addition to the entire dedicated Direct for the forms of Mario Kart World. So generally speaking, I was about the fact I really don't necessarily think that we might able to actually not get the overview trailer for the likes of in Mario Kart World, at least for a while, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, mind you though, because that game is obviously getting very closer to its release either way. So, and I suppose no matter what though, whenever we do manage to get ourselves Mario Kart World on our spare own time, in addition to the Nintendo Switch 2 itself as well, obviously though is about the fact that the mode I'm going to be jumping into in terms of the forms of Mario Kart World, and as of course, Grand Prix, and in addition to that, trying out free roam mode or anything else like that. I'm not entirely sure if the fact that if you do manage to complete those missions in particular for the sake of the forms of free roam, then I'm pretty sure enough that was about the fact that again, it's probably for well, I don't know about you, because it's been quite some time since we've actually mentioned something related to Mario Kart World, since likely also for the sake of the forms the countdown begins. So either way. Now, in terms of the forms of that particular other situations though, in terms of the forms of that particular, well, leaks and rumors and stuff like that, well, I'm still really hoping for the fact that with Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, I should say, because I will have to admit though, it's been quite some time since I actually have last mentioned something related to Dragon Ball related, or Dragon Ball Z in general. Although, kind of think about it, let me just go ahead and leave the level, because after all, we've already collected every single collectibles now, so that's sure it's that thing. So now let's head over to World 8-4, and straight off the bat, we're about to be going back into the Slide Brilla, and in addition to the Sub Brilla, respectively. So this time around though, we can now able to actually go into the proper way, instead of the forms of the alternate routes, because truth be told, that whenever we first got into this stage from before, that we accidentally took the actual alternate door, which pretty much leads us to almost straightly towards the end of the stage. So because of that though, yeah, I was not paying attention to that at first glance though, but either way. Also, as I don't suppose if you noticed, but there's also the fact that I found is very cool about the fact that after all, since we're now in summer of course, this means about the fact that I can now able to actually watch you know, Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spend My Vacation movie, not only for the fact that did I somehow manage to got, you know, as you probably would expect, that we've already got 3 different version releases of Tiny Toon Adventures How I Spend My Vacation already, from the likes of, Apple TV, in addition to the DVD physical version, specifically the American version, because again, luckily it did manage to play well enough on my DVD portable player, because, region free. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. In addition to that, with Xbox systems, or technically, that's Microsoft in general, because, well, not only I can able to actually watch the film on the phones on a big screen on my TV, but in addition to that, I could also technically watch that on my laptop as well. Because apparently, that when it comes to Microsoft in general, they all officially been linked between each other when it comes to not only the game system itself, but in addition to your laptop, depending on what models you get. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool and interesting at the same time. So either way, and this also applies with the phones of any other movies I can able to try to watch at some point. Although I was expecting actually to try to able to actually get Night Glory digital download for the sake of the phones of Tiny Toon Adventures on the Xbox system at some point. And let's just hope about the fact that that particular special will not be delisted, because I've heard so many good things about it. Although, for whatever reason though, it's about the fact that the Spring Break one never gets re-released, outside from the fact that it's still basically stuck onto the TV. Well, to be more accurate though, on television back in 1994. Never since then, about the fact that that particular special in mind never brought back onto physical media, in addition to digital media as well. So yeah, it's kind of strange though. I'm guessing it's most likely because of criticizing with the forms of this animation style, or perhaps even maybe the story itself wasn't exactly deep or fleshed out. So generally speaking, I can totally see why. There are a lot of fans out there will definitely recommend not only How I Spend My Vacation, but in addition to Night Glory as well, because it involves that very, very cool, unexpected The Nightmare Before Christmas reference, to be more specifically with the actual Pumpkin King. So yeah, you can get the idea for that specific knowledge worth nerding for. So now, if I'm not mistaken with this though, I'm pretty sure for the fact that, although I may be wrong, but because of that though, relatively speaking, unfortunately though, we have decided able to actually go back onto exploring into World 8-5. Well, considering about the fact that one thing I will have to admit though right away, World 8-5 does feel a bit tedious at times, mainly because every time whenever you do manage to exit out the level, and if you think you are missing something, this means you have to force to go back onto the actual auto-scrolling section again. And you know how I feel about the auto-scrolling sections in general, because not only because it's very, very slow, but in addition to that though, is about the fact that it can give you a lot of frustration, trial and error situations. Specifically though, if you really want able to try to keep things moving, and most of the time though, you have to still need to keep up in terms of the screen scrolling. So yeah, it's a bit tedious for sure. But regardless of such though, it's about the fact that let's just hope that we're not going to get lost on this place sometimes. Well, unlike the first go around though, when it comes to searching around a bunch of toads for that matter, then obviously though I've almost got lost track and stuff like that. So, but luckily though, about the fact that some locations are very exactly identical. So at the very least though, is about the fact that one thing you might able to realize is that since in Journey Falls within World 6, as you probably already know, that one of those puzzle pieces has been in a different spot. Journey Falls within, let's just say, in World 6-4 for example, that normally in Journey Falls within a normal run through, you have to use the Koopa Shell in order to try to free out the toad out for one of those boxes in order to actually rescue one of the toads. So logically though, is about the fact that we might as well do the same thing for the puzzle piece, right? Well, actually as it turns out, that's not the case, because you can simply just try to obtain the jigsaw puzzle piece, so you don't have to necessarily try to worry about utilizing the forms of the Koopa Shell anymore. So because of that though, yeah, you can get the idea about the forms of some differences if you manage to replay for the exact same stage again, but with different collectibles you can get. So either way, so I'm pretty sure about the fact that we've only down to one last puzzle piece left until we basically conclude collecting every puzzle pieces in the whole game. So logically though, we can now to actually go into the puzzle mode, right? Well, truth be told though, is about the fact that, like I said before, that I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, is that the final part might actually, depending on the forms of how well it goes, that basically though, it can be either be delayed, or possibly potentially it could able to actually work out as well. Well, time will definitely tell though. We might able to actually save that particular topic for the later date though. So no matter what though, we can able to actually wait for the time being when it comes to likely trying to mention about the subject. So... But anyway though, now as far as the forms of the 8 games that has currently been listed, for the sake of the forms of, you know, game share functionality for both Switch 1 or Switch 2, the games are Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, and Fast Fusion, Split Fiction, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Super Mario Odyssey, and Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, plus Jamboree TV. So, I found it was a little bit odd though, about the fact that they somehow ignored not only the original Super Mario Party, but in addition to Mario Party Superstars as well. In terms of the forms of that particular game share functionality, I mean, time will definitely tell if they added some more game support in terms of the forms of the game share functionality. I mean, time will definitely tell though, like I said before, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that it's also reassuring about this too, about the fact that no matter what though, I think that's essentially how I can really think about in terms of describing about the forms of how, in fact, how much excited I was in terms of likely trying to able to actually get myself, you know, the Nintendo Switch 2, in addition to, you know, a bunch of accessories, of course. So, anyway, so this will be the last time for trying to able to, like, actually kind of think about it. There's going to be more sections with this, though, in terms of likely not to get caught by this very strange little thing in the background. So, logically, though, is about the fact that we have to take things a little bit easy and slow, so that'll be the best recommendation for this part. So just in case you don't want to be, like, too recklessness, and you get the idea for that point. So... alright, just take my time. There we go. So just in case I don't want to get hit by these crying dry bones and all that stuff. So logically though, once we get to the pipe, then sure enough, we're able to obtain the final puzzle piece in the whole game. So yeah, everything else goes all fine and dandy, right? Well, if you ever think about it, let me just head back onto the world map screen and wait a minute. Ah, I forgot there was actually technically one last pickup left on that stage. Oh, jeez Louise, that's gonna be the third, or kind of think about it, that's actually now the second time that I somehow missed something on that specific stage alone with World 8-5. Oh well, I'll be back for it eventually, so don't you worry. So my guess was that we might able to actually get the final music note in the whole game as well. So logically though, that'll be the only stage in terms of the forms of stage 5 variety that it does manage to have 3 collectibles on that particular stage itself. So from now on though, we're focusing on the extra stages from now on, because I was originally trying to able to actually go into the final boss in the game again, for able to try to deal with a rematch against with, you know, not only for Bowser, but in addition to Angry Hammer Bro as well. So logically that was about the fact that I'm also saved that for last. So just in case about the fact that we can able to actually just, well, don't get your hopes up in terms of the forms of, you know, you might get something rewarding if you do manage to able to actually try to deal with the forms of the final boss in the game again. But with the forms of how the fact that, well, you can get the idea for this point. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm almost close to dying. So because of that, though, this is what I mean about the fact that the extra stages becomes extremely difficult. Now, I will say, out of all the actual extra stages in Super Princess Peach, what I've noticed, World 8-7 is by far is the hardest stage in the game to me. But that's just mainly because, well, again, if you mess up on that particular, you know, joy vibe right there, when it comes to likely trying to dodge those little fire bars and stuff like that, and at the same time, trying to able to avoid those rocket launchers, or rocket grabbers, as far as I like to call them that. Obviously, though, is about the fact if you get hit while during the actual vibe, then obviously, though, you will able to actually cancel out the actual vibe itself. So because of that, yeah, it's definitely a little bit trickier in comparison to the past extra stages that we've already been into. But logically so, for the fact that we can now able to actually realize that we can now able to actually obtain the final 3 levels for the mini games, which are, the majority of them is level 10 within all 3 of these mini games combined. So logically though, we can able to like, well, obtain them basically. But also though is about the fact that we also have to complete the stage itself as well. So just in case about the fact that completionist is required, at least if I thought so anyway. So Oh boy, this section is very tricky, especially noticeable again. If you fall to a bottomless pit, you have to restart the entire section again. But if you do get game over, you have to restart the entire stage all over again. So that won't be that fun. But at least luckily though about the fact that there's no loading screens or anything else like that. Unlike, you know, Princess Peach Showtime that's filled to the brim with a lot of loading screens and all that stuff every time whenever you leave the level, one other times enter the level, or even a transition to the next scene. So yeah, you can get the idea for that. So anyway, let's just... Ah, no! I didn't jump! Ah, jeez. What is going on with me? And I'm really hoping that's not going to be on the final stretch of the level, because if I do seriously manage to get messed up on the final stretch of this stage, well, I'm gonna be likely all delusional or anything else like that. Especially considering for the fact that since, kind of think about it, since we're now in June already, this also means about the fact that we can able to try to celebrate 1 year anniversary of the film's release of Inside Out 2, which, again, we'll let Maxi will mention more about it if he goes back on playing through Paper Mario, because as you probably already expect, it's been like, you know, a month ago since we last played Paper Mario after all, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that he does need to, like, get himself fully recovered after doing with a lot of battling, in addition to a lot of exploration too, and not to mention though with the earlier stages in terms of the post-game content, before he goes into the final chapter in the game, which is of course Chapter 8, so you can get the idea for that. So... and yeah, believe it or not though, this is actually it's now the third time, or technically the second time actually, since we're able to actually hear this music track, which is of course Bowser's Villa 2, and because of that though, you know what I mean with that particular soundtrack, it gets a bit limited, because it only been, you can only listen to that particular music in 2 stages only, so, because yeah, I almost first thought it's gonna be on, World 8-4 as well, but actually, as it turns out, that's not the case. So either way, so let's go ahead and once again guide the blue flame to lit up those lanterns, so just in case we can able to progress. So anyway, so it's time to do this technique right there to lead that little spring right there, so that way we can able to continue our progress there. Also, we have to dodge some more fire bars, so as to be expected when it comes to Bowser's castle environment. So anyway. So let's see what happens here. So of course we got ourselves some even more rooms where we're gonna have to able to try to rotate the room over. And okay, there's nothing we can do with this brew in particular. So because he's invincible and stuff like that, so we got able to make a run for it. So oh jeez, we have to go for these little small platforms in particular. So thankfully though, with the phones that float Brilla, it should make the entire section a lot easier. So because of that, oh jeez, I totally forgot about those guys. So yeah, once again we have to activate the Gloom emotion right here, so just in case we're able to run fast and then just trying to jump even further for some platforms, and exponentially though, once we're able to try to evade those bunch of boos, and fundamentally speaking though, that will pretty much lead us to the next collectible, which is of course level 10, but this time around though, for the sake of the forms of Toad Trot's level 10. So logically though, we've only got 1 level left, and that's what appears to be on Toad Shot when it comes to unlocking that particular level in one of the mini games in general. So oh wait, that was something else entirely. So let's move on to the final stage in terms of the forms the extra stages variety, and also the entire game itself as well. That's of course World 8-9. And right off the bat though, we start things off with that familiar stealth section right there, so we can able to try to float around for quite often before he decides to wake up. So, and I'm gonna say though, this part is actually quite scary, but at the same time though, that as long as you were able to try to, you know, keep your pace going, well, to be more accurate though, just trying to keep things a little bit steady for your movement, then it should be okay, in terms of the forms of not to get caught by the forms that have very strange enemy in the background, which I know for a fact it's hard for me to explain, because truth be told though, it's been about quite a few days actually since we've last experienced Bowser's Villa as the world itself goes, so because of that, yeah, you can get the idea what I was expecting for this point. So anyway, so yeah, nothing else I can really say about the forms of other stuff worth noting for, apart from the fact that, you know, the more game announcements is getting closer by now, And fundamentally speaking, one thing I surprisingly forgot to mention about actually is that for whatever reason, whenever I did manage able to after I did somehow manage to watch an extremely goofy movie recently, which I also did manage able to enjoy that, despite the budget wasn't nearly as high as the films of how it does on the first film to me. But regardless of such though, it's about the fact I found it was very odd and strange at the same time that for whatever reason, Disney Plus decides able to add not only Mission Impossible 1, but all the way up to Mission Impossible 6 in those specific film categories where it comes to likely adding a bunch of those Mission Impossible films onto that specific streaming services. So, yeah, despite the fact that Mission Impossible was made by, you know, Paramount Pictures and stuff like that, so I have no words they decided able to include the rest of the films of, well, except with the films of the 7th one and the 8th one especially, because generally speaking, it's about the fact that they only somehow listed not 1 but 6 films so far, and as a matter of fact though, because relatively speaking, I just have nothing else to say in terms of the films' unexpected appearance, or in some cases, additions to Disney Plus streaming services, as a matter of fact. So, but there we go, folks. That pretty much does it for every single extra stages in Super Princess Peach. So, yeah, we're only down to 2 things left before we're able to actually focus on some extra stuff. So, for instance, we'll go back onto World 8-5, hopefully for the final time after realizing about the fact that there's technically yet another collectible we do need to pick up. That's, of course, the final music note in the game, to able to actually conclude every single collectibles throughout the whole entire game. So, well, except for the fact I do somehow realize is that whenever I managed to win onto this off screen, by the way, I did somehow accidentally realize that I'm somehow missing not 1 but 3 enemies onto the actual enemy book. So, yeah, we definitely need to work on that at some point as well, after we somehow deal with the forms of a lot of stuff about this. So either way, so as far as I'm aware though, it's going to be on the bottom left corner of that particular section of the stage, as we expected. So luckily though, we don't have to necessarily try to worry about the pipe maze or anything else like that. So logically though, it's just straight up platforming, but at the same time, because again, if we do manage to able to collect every single collectibles as you expect, then obviously that was about the fact that we can just simply pause the game and then just try to select exit stage without need to worry about completing the actual stage itself again. So, because what's the point of able to actually keep on collecting some more coins at this point? Because, you know, despite the fact that we're only down to 1 item left in terms of the forms of trying to buy anything in terms of the shop. So, anyways, let's go ahead and try to avoid. Oh, jeez. I totally forgot about those platforms that, again, if you stand on them for a quicker amount of time, then it just somehow crumbles. So, oh jeez, I somehow keep on getting hit sometimes. Alright, let's focus, not to be so hasty, but at the very least we can able to regenerate our health at one point, so... And we're almost there, just needs to dodge a lot of thwomps, and... Oh, I totally forgot, because I just... did not even able to expect there's technically the last puzzle piece. Ah, I should have known that was there. Oh well, but at the very least though, we somehow already collected, rather, every single music notes now, and now we somehow collected every puzzle pieces. I know it's been quite a while since I actually have last played this game for sure, so forgive my short-term memory loss, or amnesia for that matter. So, logically though, luckily I'm not like Dory or anything else like that. So, anyway, time to deal with the forms of the final boss's rematch once again. So much to the point that, as we expected, we always have to face off against with the Angry Hammer Bro to start things off, and eventually Bowser 1 and Bowser 2. Now, as you can tell, that I somehow managed able to skip the cutscenes this time around, because there is actually a way for you that you can able to actually skip those cutscenes this time around, because normally, in the past few boss rematch encounters, I just simply try to watch the actual scene itself, because obviously something new just came up with like new stages in certain worlds, in addition to Toad and Luigi especially. Whilst meanwhile in Journey Evolves within this particular final boss encounters, obviously though this is going to be the only time we can able to actually skip those little boss cinematic cutscenes as an intro sequence, because you know, they all basically plays out exactly the same for that particular cutscenes, so yeah, there's no new stages or anything else like that, because, you know, we've already access to every single stages now. So either way, so of course the actual battles themselves remains the same as before, so there's nothing different about it, apart from Bowser 2 in particular, because, well, we'll explain more about that if we get onto the actual rematch of Bowser 2 specifically. So, yeah, for the most part though, that Bowser's almost down for good, so either way, because it doesn't take that long to able to, like, oh wait a second, kind of think about it, because I'm pretty sure that in the actual Bowser 1 fight, I actually did realize that he now decides to throw even more bigger hammers than before, which I was not expecting to see that coming, but regardless of such though, we'll still have to activate the Rage mode, so just in case we can able to deal the amount of damage to him in the quickest way imaginable. So, I know there was actually a normal attempted method when it comes to attacking him normally, but I've always liked able to try to get some satisfaction for, you know, trying to activate Rage mode every time. So, anyways, on to the true final boss for the second time, and let's just see what really happens if we manage able to face off against with him for the second time. So, because logically though, we actually did manage to take him down no problem last time, so wonder if this is going to be possible this time around. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What was the first mode would you like to try out if Mario Kart World is releasing? Because for me, I'm still trying to able to experience Grand Prix mode at first whenever I get the game, and so much to the point that I can definitely try out Knockout Tour, and especially noticeable eventually at some point in the future with Free Realm mode. So because of that, that's going to be super duper exciting if I do say so for myself, especially considering about the fact that you know, Mario Kart World is going to be one of the greatest selling games by far in terms of the launched library of games for Nintendo Switch 2. So yeah, you can get the idea for that. So, and also, remember what I said before about the fact that sometimes the hitbox with Bowser 2 can be inconsistent sometimes? Well, you know what I mean about the fact that if you do manage to be able to accidentally aim the bomb right into its eyes, that does not count as a hit, by the way, because instead, Bowser's eyes decides to go into like some sort of like a blue visual vibes to it, as you can see on screen. That actually means that does not count as a hit. So you have to specifically try to aim right where his head was or something like that. Again, sometimes the hitbox in this boss is a bit weird sometimes, so either way. But either way, oh jeez, I forgot about this fire breath. Because yeah, if you pay attention to where his eyes goes all like completely orange and stuff like that, that means we have to, you know, avoid that particular flamethrower or the fire breath. So, alright, so of course he's trying to protect himself from Calm, so let's just go ahead and activate Rage mode again, so we can able to get rid of the shield. So that way he won't be able to do that ever again. So either way, because again, if you leave it there for too long, he will miraculously try to restore his health, just like you do. So this also applies with Glooper Blooper or Glooper Blooper itself as well. So again, I do apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks, because honestly, that's as far as I can try to able to discuss upon in terms of the forms of today's subject at this point. I mean, sure, no matter what though, oh jeez, that comes off as way too fast with those hammers. Oh jeez, I can totally see why this boss is so tricky and difficult sometimes. Alright. Oh, dang it, I was so close. Oh, come on. Why won't you do it for me, with that particular last hit in mind? Oh jeez, this might take a bit while for this point, guys. This might take a bit while, especially because of all that. Very janky hitbox sometimes, like I said before, but let's just hope this hit will count. And there goes Bowser 2 for the final time. So logically though, is about the fact that the ending itself is going to play out exactly the same as before. So logically though, there's no major differences in terms of the ending. So, because all we really get is just about the fact that we can still see Peach is trying to perform a nice little, nice shot, particular stuff. And as a result, we get able to rescue Mario again. So, yeah, nothing different from the ending, like I said before. So, yeah, I've got nothing else to add. So either way, and I'll promise you guys, enjoying at some point, for the sake of the forms when Maxi goes back on playing through Paper Mario, that he will definitely try to mention more about, you know, the gaming announcements for the Summer Game Fest coming up on this Friday. So yeah, I can't believe it's gone so fast in terms of proceeding into not only some more gaming announcements thanks to Summer Game Fest, but in addition to, you know, Nintendo Switch 2 is almost approaching, so but because of that though, I'm still incredibly excited to try out some Switch 2 exclusives, you know, for the near future, for likely or so for 2 of those games so far for Switch 2 exclusives, and in addition to maybe more in the future, and maybe there's a possibility we might able to actually hear more about the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise as we expected. So either way, so yeah, that's basically all there is to it. Although then again, I would have liked to explain my final thoughts of this game though, but we'll save that until specifically at some point for the finale part, because as you can definitely tell, the game itself is still not over yet, because we still got mini games to play, in addition to puzzles we need to solve, and most importantly though, that we are about to be obtaining the final item in the game on the shop. And not to mention though, we still need to be able to try to track down not only 1, but 3 remaining enemies on our enemy book, at least for what I found out anyway. Because relatively speaking, it was about the fact that we have no choice but able to actually backtrack onto other stages in particular. I'm guessing we need to go back onto World 3 specifically, in order able to actually try to get the 2 final regular enemies, and not to mention though, there's this one rare enemy that we do need to try to take care of, not only once, but 3 times, ranging from not only in the 2nd world, but in addition to the 5th world and the 6th world respectively, which, yeah, you probably already know what I was expecting to try to mention about this particular point worth noting for, so, yeah. And not only that though, I suppose the last thing I want to say is about the fact that I'm pretty sure that the weather itself at the moment is also going to be really good, despite the fact that it's going to be a little bit hotter than ever before, because like I said before, we're now on summer, you know, especially that I'm very glad that I can able to actually rewatch, you know, Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spend My Vacation, and in addition to a Goofy movie on Disney+, and you can get the idea what I was expecting for that point for, you know, getting hyped about the forms of summer in general when it comes to experiencing certain films on my spare own time, so you can get the idea. So with that being said folks, is that we got the endings of this point right here, so join me next time for some more of Let's Play of Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS. Is that we are about to be focusing on, the first thing we need to focus on actually is the puzzle mode, and in addition to that, the mini-games, specifically 2 of those mini-games we'd like to tackle through first, which we'll discuss more about that during at some point until tomorrow, because relatively speaking now, I can't even believe we're now actually at the final stretch of the game already. So either way, and I'll see you guys until presumably for tomorrow. Later fellas.